The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It came down in thick sheets, hammering against the windshield like 1,000 impatient fingers. Hasan gripped the steering wheel tighter, eyes straining to see through the blur of water and darkness. It was past 2 a.m., and he was still an hour away from home. He hated late shifts, hated the endless, empty roads, and most of all, he hated the silence. His car's radio had been broken for weeks, and tonight, his phone had died just after he left the factory. No music, no podcasts, no company, just the hiss of rain, the swish of the wipers, and the low hum of the engine. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, a black ribbon lined with dense trees on either side. There were no streetlights out here, no other cars, just him, the storm, and the road. Then something flickered in the distance. A figure. Hasan blinked, leaned forward slightly, unsure if he'd really seen it. It was still there, standing in the middle of the road. He slammed the brakes, the tires screeching against the wet asphalt as the car skidded sideways before stopping a few feet from the figure. His heart pounded in his chest. He looked up again, trying to get a better view. It was a woman. She stood barefoot on the road, wearing a soaked white dress that clung to her thin frame. Her hair was long, black, and matted to her face. She wasn't moving, just standing. Hasan sat frozen. The car's engine had stalled during the stop. Rain continued to pour down, now almost drowning out the sound of his own breathing. He reached for the door handle, hesitated, then opened the door and stepped out into the rain. "Are you okay?" he called out, his voice barely audible over the downpour. No answer. He took a few cautious steps forward, shielding his eyes. But she was gone. He stopped and looked around. No one. Just the sound of the rain and the empty road stretching into the dark. Confused and unnerved, Hasan hurried back into the car and slammed the door shut. He tried restarting the engine. Nothing. He tried again, pressing the pedal slightly, still dead. Then he heard it, a soft, deliberate tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Coming from behind him, inside the car. He turned around slowly, heart hammering, eyes wide. There was no one there. The back seat was empty. He quickly locked the doors, wiped the fog off the windshield, and tried the engine once more. It sputtered, choked, and finally roared back to life. He let out a shaky breath. "Probably just stress," he whispered to himself. Then he saw the rearview mirror. The woman was sitting in the back seat. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow and black, fixed on his. Water dripped from her hair onto the seat below her. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Hasan screamed, scrambled for the door, but the locks wouldn't open. He reached for the window switch, but the power cut out. The lights inside the car flickered. And then, she was gone. He looked again. The back seat was empty. The mirror was clear. The only trace left was a wet imprint on the seat fabric, shaped like a human form. The car, as if released from a spell, suddenly came back to life. Headlights brightened. Dashboard lit up. He pressed the gas and drove. He didn't stop, didn't slow down. The road felt endless. Every few minutes he checked the mirror, expecting her to reappear. But she never did. By the time he reached the city limits, dawn was breaking. He pulled into a gas station, parked under the bright lights, and exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. He got out to inspect the back seat. There was no one there, but it was wet and cold. The damp imprint of a person remained. He touched it. It was ice cold, even though the heater had been on. At the convenience store, he asked the clerk if anyone else had come through the road that night. The man shook his head. "Not that I know of. No one uses that stretch much anymore. Ever since the accident." "What accident?" "Couple of years back, a woman got hit by a car. The driver kept going. They never found her body, just her shoes and a blood trail. Locals say her spirit still waits on that road, trying to hitch a ride." Hasan didn't respond. He just got back in his car and drove the rest of the way in silence. He sold the car the next week. The passenger in the fog. It was past midnight. Emre was driving home after visiting his mother's village. The fog had rolled in thick, swallowing the road in a cold white blanket. Even with the fog lights on, he could barely see a few meters ahead. The radio offered nothing but static. His phone had no signal, and the GPS was frozen on the same frame. The road was empty. He hadn't seen another car in over half an hour. Everything felt eerily still. Then through the veil of fog, he saw a shadow. He instinctively tapped the brakes and squinted. Someone was walking along the edge of the road. A man, dressed in an old oversized coat, a cap pulled low over his face. As Emre's car approached, the man turned and raised his thumb. Hitchhiking? At this hour? In the middle of nowhere? Emre hesitated. Every part of him said no, but something, some strange inner pull, told him to stop. He rolled down the window. "Where are you heading?" Emre asked. The man stepped closer. His face was mostly hidden in the mist. "Just down the road. To the end." There was something unsettling in his tone, but Emre nodded and unlocked the door. The man climbed in silently. He didn't speak, didn't smile, just sat perfectly still, hands on his knees staring straight ahead. A damp, earthy smell filled the car, like old soil and rain-soaked wood. Trying to ignore the discomfort crawling over him, Emre focused on the road. Minutes passed in silence. The fog was thicker now, almost alive, pressing against the windshield. Trying to ease the tension, Emre asked, "So, what's your name?" The man slowly turned his head. His face, pale and expressionless, emerged slightly from under the cap. His eyes were dark, too dark. Finally, in a low, whispery voice, he said, "You won't be going back." Emre's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Sorry, what did you say?" The man didn't respond, just turned back toward the road. Emre felt a coldness crawl down his spine. He decided to stop and let the man out. He pulled over, the tires crunching on the shoulder gravel. "Look, I think it's best you continue on foot from here," he said firmly. The man didn't react at first. Then he turned his head slowly once more and said, "We're already there." Emre looked around. They were nowhere. The fog was endless. The road looked exactly the same as before, empty, twisting into nothing. Then the engine died. The lights shut off. Total silence. A soft ticking noise came from somewhere inside the car. Then, nothing. Panic rising, Emre tried to start the engine. It wouldn't turn. His phone screen was black. He reached for the door handle. Locked. All the doors were locked. He turned to look at the back seat. Empty. The man was gone. "Impossible," Emre whispered. He hadn't heard the door open. He hadn't even blinked. And then he noticed it. On the fogged-up rear window, letters were forming, drawn from the inside, as if by an invisible finger. "Now you're on the road too." His heart pounded in his chest. He scrambled for his phone again. Still nothing. He wiped the window to see outside. Nothing but the white void of fog. No landmarks. No lights. No sound. And then he saw it in the rearview mirror. His reflection was wrong. It wasn't following his movements. The face staring back at him had hollow eyes, a pale expression, lips that slowly parted into a grin. It wasn't him anymore. He blinked, and it was gone. But so was he. Emre never made it home that night. His car was later found abandoned on an empty stretch of road, with the keys still in the ignition and the doors locked from the inside. There were no footprints, no signs of struggle, only a single sentence scratched faintly into the dashboard. "One more for the road." It was supposed to be a quick drive. Liam had taken this route dozens of times before, 2 hours from the city to his hometown. But tonight, something felt off. His GPS suddenly froze. Then it rerouted him. "Faster route found." He glanced at the time. He was already running late. Shrugging, he followed the new path, turning onto a narrow, unfamiliar road lined with thick trees. After a few minutes, the road narrowed further, and the trees closed in. His headlights barely cut through the darkness. There were no signs, no lights, just gravel and shadows. Then his radio crackled to life. "Don't stop." He stared at it, stunned. The screen was off. He hadn't touched it. It spoke again. "Keep driving." A chill ran down his spine. "Is this a joke?" he muttered. Suddenly, the car jolted, like it had hit something. He hit the brakes and stepped out. Nothing was there. No animal, no debris, just silence. When he got back in, the car's interior felt colder. The windshield began to fog from the inside. And in that fog, a message appeared, written by an unseen finger. "You turned wrong." Panicked, Liam reversed out of the narrow road, tires skidding. The trees seemed closer now. He finally reached the main road again, heart racing. When he looked in the rearview mirror, he saw someone standing at the edge of the woods, staring at his car. They didn't move, didn't blink. He didn't stop to look again. Later at home, Liam checked his GPS history. There was no alternate route. That road didn't exist.